Welcome back everyone to Behind the Arc Basketball on YouTube. In this video, I'm going to get creative here with an opinion video about my thoughts. So I'm going to talk about 10 college basketball teams that should move to another conference. The reason why most of these teams should move are based on 4 factors. The first factor being a team's proximity to other programs in the conference. The second factor being that the conference schedule is too easy. The third factor is the conference schedule is too difficult. And the last factor here is, does these same trends with the basketball team happen with the football team as well? For example, does the football team struggle and does the basketball team have trouble winning games also? So with the 2020-21 college basketball season upcoming, there have been a couple teams who announced that they would join a new conference for this upcoming season. UConn will be playing in the Big East starting this season, as they are no longer in the American. Robert Morris is joining the Horizon League as they are no longer in the Northeast Conference. Purdue-Fort Wayne will leave the Summit League as they'll join the Horizon League. And New Jersey Institute of Technology will leave the Atlantic Sun as they will be joining the America East. With these teams set to move conferences for this upcoming season, I decided to think about the future of college basketball down the road and what it could possibly look like here in the future if another conference realignment does happen. In this video, I came up with 10 teams that I thought would be good candidates to move to another conference in the future. Number 10 on my list happens to be the New Mexico State Aggies, as I have them moving from the Western Athletic Conference over to the Mountain West. So I feel like the Western Athletic Conference is way too easy for New Mexico State's basketball program. The Aggies have won at least 23 games in the season for the last 9 straight seasons. They've made 8 NCAA tournament appearances during the last decade, and New Mexico State finished with a perfect 16-0 conference record last season. They have also won 34 straight conference games in a row. It makes sense from a basketball standpoint for New Mexico State to move up to the Mountain West Conference, since they'll also be able to compete with in-state rival, the New Mexico Lobos. Despite losing their last 12 NCAA tournament games since 1993, the Aggies lately have been able to keep up with the big boys. They lost by 3 points on the road at Kansas back in 2018, and they also lost by 1 point in the 2019 round of 64 to NCAA tournament against Auburn. The only thing that's holding back New Mexico State, obviously, is their football team, since their football program plays as an independent, and their football team hasn't really been doing so well for the last few years. But for basketball, New Mexico State can definitely use an upgrade here from the WAC over to the Mountain West to give them more of a challenge. Number 9 on the list for a team that should definitely move in the future happens to be the Tulane Green Wave. I've got them moving from the American over to the Sun Belt. So Tulane's first 6 seasons in the American from 2014 to 2020, it has been an absolute nightmare. The Green Wave have a conference record of 21 wins and 87 losses during their first 6 seasons in the American. That's an abysmal 19% winning percentage in conference games since 2014. Tulane finished in last place in their conference for the last 2 seasons in 2019-2020. They also went winless in 2019 by going 0-18 in the American. The Green Wave has been flat out awful and non-competitive, and that's why they haven't been to an NCAA tournament since 1995. The competition in the American is just simply too tough for Tulane to compete against. Tulane's football program isn't really strong either. Since 2000, Tulane has only been to 4 bowl games for football. They posted a 7-6 record in 3 of those seasons and an 8-5 record in 1 of those seasons, and that's their best record in the past 20 years. Tulane's football team, however, did post an undefeated 12-0 record during the 1998 season when they were ranked at number 7 in the nation. Moving to the Sun Belt would help Tulane win more games and be more competitive, that they would have a better chance to compete against these types of teams. It makes sense as well for Tulane to move, since they will be able to compete with teams in their state and their region in the Sun Belt, such as teams like Louisiana Lafayette, Louisiana Monroe, Appalachian State, and Arkansas State, to name a few of those teams. Number 8 on the list here that I have happens to be the St. Louis Billikens. I've got them moving from the Atlantic 10 over to the American. So the Atlantic 10's got 14 teams that play in their conference. 13 out of the 14 teams are located either on the East Coast or in the northeastern portion of the U.S. St. Louis, though, happens to be the odd team out, located in the Midwest. After the conclusion of the 2019-20 college basketball season, the American announced that they will move their headquarters from Providence, Rhode Island over to Irving, Texas. The move to Texas for an American headquarters could possibly be a help here to land St. Louis in the future. The Billikens are coming off 2 straight seasons in which they had 23 wins, and they also posted 3 straight seasons where they had 26 wins in 2011-2012, 28 wins back in 2012-13, and a 27-win season during the 2013-14 season. Despite having 3 down seasons from 2014 to 2017, St. Louis should still be up for the challenge here to compete at a higher level conference like the American. It also makes sense from a geographic standpoint because they won't need to travel all the way out of their way to take on teams like Rhode Island or UMass for an away conference game. And St. Louis would take on teams in their conference if they did play an American closer to their proximity. Teams like Wichita State, Tulsa, SMU, and Memphis if they did happen to make the move to the American. Now I'll take a look here. Number 7 for a team that should relocate, in my opinion, in the future happens to be the Houston Cougars. I've got them moving from the American over to the Big 12. So Houston for basketball has posted 22 wins or more during their last 5 seasons. If Houston keeps up their dominance in the American, I see them being a great fit here to move up to a power conference like the Big 12. Moving to the Big 12 will make sense from a geographic standpoint. They would be the 5th team in the Big 12 conference to join Texas, Texas Tech, TCU, and Baylor if Houston did happen to make this move. Despite a down season for their football team in 2019, Houston had appeared in 6 straight bowl games from 2013 to 2018, where the Cougars posted a 13-1 record and ranked number 8 in the nation for football back in the 2015 season. So to make this as a power conference move to go up to the Big 12, it's good to know that Houston's basketball team isn't the only strong suit on the campus here in the football program. Also can keep up just like how the basketball team's playing really well recently. If Houston keeps this up with having more great seasons in the future, I wouldn't be shocked here if they eventually move up to the Big 12 conference. Now we'll take a look now at number 6 on the list. Another power conference team we'll take a look at for this one, or the first power conference team actually, happens to be the West Virginia Mountaineers, moving from the Big 12 over to the SEC for a power conference move here. So the geography, I feel like, is just way off for West Virginia to be a member of the Big 12 conference. It makes zero sense for a geographical standpoint why West Virginia plays in the Big 12. They're a misfit in a power conference, playing against 4 programs from Texas, 2 in Oklahoma, 2 out in Kansas, and against Iowa State. West Virginia travels more miles than any other power conference team in the nation. The furthest conference opponent happens to be Texas Tech. It is located 22 hours to the west of West Virginia. The closest conference opponent, the Kansas Jayhawks, happens to be located 900 miles, which is 13 and a half hours to the west. According to West Virginia's independent student newspaper, even head coach Bob Huggins said that the miles on the road to their conference games is, quote, a grind, close quote by Bob Huggins. With Huggins stating once again, quote, not to make an excuse, I think it's true that fact that our travel's tough. It's tough. It's tough on me and I don't play. I can imagine those guys, close quote right there by head coach Bob Huggins of West Virginia. But even with a tough travel schedule, West Virginia still managed to earn 4 straight NCAA tournament bids from 2015 to 2018, with no seed being worse than the number 5 seed during their last 4 tournament appearances. And they were on pace as well to possibly grab a 5 seed this past season if the 2020 NCAA tournament had happened. And it makes more sense here from a geographical standpoint for West Virginia to travel 5 hours to their closest opponent in the SEC, which would happen to be the Kentucky Wildcats. So I've got West Virginia playing its closer teams here, making the move over from the Big 12 to the SEC. Let's take a look here. Another team, in my opinion, that should definitely take a look to move back to their conference in the future would happen to be the Missouri Tigers. So I've got Missouri once again here, moving from the SEC and going back to the Big 12, which they did play in the past. So it just seems here that Missouri is always in an odd place in the SEC. The border war between Kansas and Missouri, I feel like that rivalry game should be played every single season. Missouri, in my opinion, just needs to go back to the Big 12 with schools that are closer in proximity to them than what they are doing now, traveling all the way out to the southeastern portion of the U.S. to take on teams such as Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. During Missouri's 16 seasons in the Big 12, the Tigers made 9 NCAA tournament appearances. They also made 4 straight tournament appearances from 2009 to 2012. And that was before they did move to the SEC in the fall of 2012. Missouri's first 8 seasons in the SEC have been a struggle, with only 2 NCAA tournament appearances, which both resulted in exits in the round of 64. Lately, Missouri has just found themselves lost in the shuffle in the SEC as well, where they just really haven't been able to generate much success like they did while playing in the Big 12. So I've got them moving right back over to the Big 12. Number 4 here for a team that I would recommend moving conferences in the future would happen to be the Vermont Catamounts. I've got them moving from the America East over to the Atlantic 10. So Vermont's just been so dominant here in the America East. It's been dominant since 2002. In the last 19 seasons, Vermont's posted 20 or more wins in 17 out of those 19 seasons. They only have one losing season, which they posted a 13-17 record during the 2005-06 season. Vermont's been so dominant in conference games during their last 4 seasons that they will be a great candidate here, in my opinion, to move up to a much more challenging conference in the A10. During Vermont's last 4 seasons, from 2017 through 2020, Vermont has a combined conference record of regular season games of 59 wins and only 5 losses. I'll go through here the last 4 seasons individually of Vermont's brief overall record. So, in the 2016-17 season, Vermont posted a 29-6 record. In 2017-18, they went 27-8. In 2018-19, Vermont had a record of 27-7. In this past season, in 2019-20, Vermont posted a record of 26-7. With such an easy conference in America East for Vermont just to steamroll past their opponents, the Catamounts, in my opinion, should really think about playing against tougher competition and moving to the A10. Vermont's move to the A10 would also open up the door for a greater chance for America East teams from the conference to have a shot at making the NCAA tournament and possibly their first time ever going there. 4 teams from the America East, New Hampshire, Maine, UMass Lowell, and Hartford, have never made it before into the NCAA tournament. The A10, it would just fit well here for Vermont as far as they would compete with teams from their region. And also, Vermont was able to go 2-0 this past season against A10 teams in the non-conference leagues. Vermont won by 2 points against St. Bonaventure, who happened to be a 19-win team this past season, and Vermont also won by 25 points against George Washington. In fact, Vermont's won their last 5 games against A10 opponents, so a challenge here, moving up from the America East over to the Atlantic 10, in my opinion, would be of no problem for the Vermont Catamounts to go up to the A10. Now we'll take a look here. An A10 team will go over at number 3, and I've got them jumping over to the Big East. It happens to be the Dayton Flyers. So it seems like basically almost every single season, Dayton turns out to be one of the front runners here in the A10. During the last 10 seasons, the Flyers posted 8 seasons with 20 or more victories. They're coming off an incredible 29-2 season overall, which they were undefeated at 18-0 in the Atlantic 10, and they were on the verge of taking a number 1 seed in the 2020 NCAA tournament. Dayton has put together a profile of winning, and in my opinion, they should be deserving here to move up to the Big East Conference. The Flyers would also fit the geography area perfectly, since they're about 50 minutes away from Xavier, which would set up for some great Dayton versus Xavier battles, and Dayton would also be the middle team in the Big East if they did happen to move there, with Butler, Creighton, Marquette, and DePaul all out to the west of Dayton, and Villanova, Georgetown, St. John's, Seton Hall, UConn, and Providence located to the east of the Flyers. Dayton would have a great shot here, in my opinion, to move up to the Big East. Also, their arena fits the conference perfectly. They get the largest arena and seating capacity in the A10. Dayton fans already pack the stands. They generate 13,000 fans basically game in, game out, so generating fans here won't be a problem for the Dayton Flyers. Playing in the Big East as well would give Dayton more national television time, since they would have the opportunity here to have Big East Conference games on good times on the schedule, like Saturday afternoons in the national TV slate over on Fox, or on weeknights over on Fox Sports 1. So in my opinion here, it seems like a win-win scenario for the future that I suggest that the Dayton Flyers should follow up here with a move someday in the future to go to a power conference like the Big East. Now we'll take a look. 2 more teams remain here as far as teams that I think that will be great fits for conferences here in the upcoming future for college basketball. We're going to take a look. Fordham Rams, a team from the A10, and I've got them moving down. I've got them moving from the Atlantic 10 over to the Patriot League. So it's been a struggle here for Fordham in the A10. Through Fordham's 25 seasons playing in the Atlantic 10, the Rams have only been able to put together 2 seasons with a winning record. Their best record happens to be 18-12 during the 2006-07 season. Fordham's also had multiple seasons with single-digit wins, which it includes a 2-26 record in 2 of those seasons, back in 2002-03 and also in 2009-10. The last time that Fordham made the NCAA tournament was in 1992, and that was when they were a member of the Patriot League at the time. Fordham played in the Patriot League from 1990 to 1995, and the Patriot League does happen to fit well with the proximity of the teams located to Fordham in the conference, because Fordham will be right in the middle of the Patriot League teams, as they would have Lehigh and Lafayette to the west out in Pennsylvania, and Holy Cross and Boston University up to the northeast of Fordham in Massachusetts. So in my opinion here, it makes sense for Fordham to drop down to the Patriot League so they can just stop embarrassing themselves from getting destroyed on basically multiple games throughout the conference against teams that's much stronger to conference when they take on teams like Dayton or VCU. And now we got one more team left here, in my opinion, that should move to another conference in the future. It happens to be the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I've got them moving from the WCC over to the Pac-12. So since 1999, Gonzaga has been a dominant tier of college basketball. Under head coach Mark Few, they have dominated, putting together the best winning percentage out of any college basketball program win in the last 20 seasons. Under Few, Gonzaga's never missed an NCAA tournament, and they have never lost more than 3 regular season conference games in a single season. Gonzaga plays like a power conference team, but they don't play in a major conference. Lately, though, other WCC teams have stepped up their game to get the best of Gonzaga, teams like BYU and St. Mary's. But other WCC teams haven't really had much luck. An example of Gonzaga basically to their other conference opponents is that Gonzaga is basically the equivalent of a team with high schoolers playing against elementary school students. That is how much these blowout games are when Gonzaga plays these teams. Teams that they play that they just crush against with lopsided victories include teams like San Diego, Loyola Marymount, and Portland, to name a few. It's just not fair to those teams when they take on Gonzaga. To offset their weak conference schedule, Gonzaga schedules power conference opponents in their non-conference slate. So this past season, Gonzaga played against Oregon, Arizona, Washington, Michigan, North Carolina, and Texas A&M. Having Gonzaga in the Pac-12, it would be beneficial for the Zags, and also not only beneficial for them, but also to the Pac-12 conference, because Gonzaga would be playing against stronger opponents, and it would also help the Pac-12 bring in more revenue as well, with more fans buying tickets to see their team play Gonzaga here, which would be nationally ranked most likely when one of their conference teams does play Gonzaga. The Pac-12 would fit Gonzaga's region perfectly as well, since they would have the chance to play 4 conference games against in-state teams such as the Washington Huskies and the Washington State Cougars. The move also would work out well for Gonzaga's basketball team, since they don't have a football team. So Gonzaga, I feel like in the future here, I feel like they have to make this move. So that's a wrap here to this video with my opinion of 10 college basketball teams that should move to another conference. Now, I'd like to hear from you. Let me know down in the comment section below what other teams and conferences that you think will make a good fit for any teams here in the future that I did not have on the list. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Let me know in the comment section down below as well. Feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe to my channel. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. Check out all the other great content that my channel has to offer. This is Behind the Arc Basketball on YouTube.